Hi, we are Jarrett and Luisa Wendt with Built on Rock Parent Coaching.
We've been talking a lot about the foundation lately and how to strengthen that foundation by finding those toxic beliefs and replacing it with God's grace-filled truth, and even how to do so in Mass. So we wanted to share some of our own experience today, some of our own stories and our own journey as God has been working on our foundation. So Mass has been hard for us over the years. I want to start off by asking you, what have been some of the biggest challenges for you as a mom in taking our children to Mass?
That our children don't always behave how I imagine my children would behave at Mass. Loud meltdowns, sibling fights, sometimes them not wanting to be touched. So the sign of peace can be challenging. I don't want them to look like they're disrespectful to other people if they just extend the hand. And then me feeling like I'm a bad mom because when I try to control them, things just spiral out of proportion. So if they were having a big meltdown and I try to hold them tightly or do something against their will, then it just becomes even more explosive.
One of my biggest memories is one time one of our children got out of the pew, maybe more than one time, but this specific time, the child got out in front of the pew. We would like to sit in the front row, and so they're between front row and the altar, laying on the ground, very defiant, don't touch me, don't talk to me, very angry kind of state. And I had not done the foundation work that you've been doing, and I was really amazed. So that's why I want you to share with everybody, because I was freaking out. This is so embarrassing. If I do anything, they're just gonna get louder and bigger and disaster. This is a disaster in the moment. So what was that like for you? Can you share it a little bit with us?
Yeah, absolutely. For me, as you mentioned, I had been doing a lot of foundation work, asking God to teach me to see my children through His eyes. And so when this was happening, immediately I looked up to the crucifix and I said, God, give me your grace. And then the two options for me were the one that you mentioned, going up, picking my child up, which I knew would be explosive, or trying what we've been practicing at home, slow, listen, trying to connect with my child so that out of their free will, they could choose to come back to me or
see what happens next.
So what I proceeded to do was step out of the pew in the middle of the main aisle. I knelt down and I looked at my child, said their name, and when our eyes locked, I knew we were onto something. And then
that was not my experience. What is going on here? This child is so disobedient and it's so embarrassing, but I was just amazed.
Thank
See
you.
you kneel down there. I was praying, that's for sure.
And I was thinking too, briefly the thought crossed my head, what are other people thinking? But very purposefully and intentionally, I kept my eyes gazed on my child so that that connection wouldn't break. And then I invited my child to come back to me. And I said, I can pick you up gently, or you can walk back to me. And if you choose, you can lay here. And at first they said no. And my blood pressure started rising because I was like, what am I gonna do? So then I said, oh, you don't like those choices. Do you have other choices? But we can't lay down. And I waited.
This is in the middle of Mass.
I think it happened
Front and center.
Front and center.
Eucharistic prayer, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And I waited for what seemed like hours, but I'm sure it was just seconds in real time. And I was praying as I was waiting, God, please, this is my child. You know our family. Help me. And by His grace, my child stood up and came back to the pew. And I let out a big sigh and big prayer of thanksgiving.
Me too. So that was just one of many experiences we've had in the Mass with our kids. In general, what do you think that you've learned as a mom? What has God taught you through these struggles with our kids in Mass and through the foundation work that you've done?
Honestly, He's taught me that our kids are learning to go to Mass. That when I'm connecting with them, and I really stop thinking that I need to make them behave well, but rather find ways to help them enjoy Mass, they are learning way more than I think it's possible with how I perceive them, like being squiggly, reading saints' books, or looking at drawings. From the outside, it looks like they're not getting anything and that they're not learning how to behave well at Mass. But through time, I've seen it here at home play out completely different. They're playing Mass. They are pretending to the priest and pretending to be the acolytes and singing the Gloria and doing the Mass parts and elevating the bread and the chalice and all the things. And that's when I'm like, gosh, they are learning and they're loving it. They want to be part of it more and more. And through time, it has become less challenging. through time, it's important to note. But now, more and more, is because it's part of our routine, it's part of who they are. How about you? What has God taught you through these years?
I think through those hard experiences at Mass, I've learned not to worry about what the other people in the Mass are thinking about so much. I learned to focus on my calling as a father and to honor Jesus and honoring them, mostly by watching you, watching how calm you've been, how peaceful you've been, and how that's played out much better than control. I've learned to stay connected with my children when they struggle, to dive deeper into that connection with them, and in relationship and in connection to support them through the Mass, to put the priority on them and how are they experiencing this and how can I help them have a good experience of Mass. So a lot more to learn.
We always have a lot of growth to go through, but I think because of the fruits that we're getting, we're doing the right work.
And so are you. If you're here with us watching this video, you're a parent who really cares about the Mass, cares about your children, who wants to honor Jesus and honor them. So thank you. Thank you for your commitment, for your dedication to your parenting, for your dedication to the Lord. We invite you again to download our freebie, Struggling at Mass with Kids. Discover the blueprint for peace. This foundation work is so good.
It is very good. And in that freebie, you will find the work that we have been doing the last couple of years so that we can get to this point when it is not a dread to go to Mass, but rather a joy and delight to know that our kids are in it and still receiving God's grace and love with us in that celebration.
As always, reach out and share your successes with us so we can celebrate with you and rejoice in the good things God does.
I'll see you next time.
God bless.